Imagine a single man whose life unmade borders, whose ambitions carved a new map across the steppe. A man born into blood and exile, who rose to bind the fractious tribes of Mongolia under one ruthless law, and then set that law loose on the world. This is not a myth, this is the story of Temüjin, the boy who would become Genghis Khan, the man who conquered the world. The year is uncertain, the sky is vast. On the open steppe, survival is sharpened into a single blade of will. Temüjin was born into a world where loyalty was barter, and life was a wager of arrows and cunning. His father, a minor chieftain, was poisoned when Temüjin was still a child. With his family cast out and enemies circling, the boy learned the harshest lesson. Strength is not given, it is taken. He learned to read the signs, the way animals moved, the rhythm of wind, the intent behind a rival's smile. He learned to survive, but survival alone would not be enough. The steppe demanded something greater, a leader who could bend its chaos into an order the steppe could follow, and Temüjin had a hunger that would not be quenched. Temüjin's rise began not with epics but with a string of betrayals and unlikely alliances. He married Borte, forging loyalties. He hunted, raided, and fought. He listened. He learned the politics of kinship and the art of loyalty. Where other chieftains relied on birth, Temüjin favored merit. His inner circle would be chosen by trust, bravery, and a ruthless clarity of purpose. By the time he took the name Genghis Khan, universal ruler, he had already remade himself. No longer a scorned son, he became an architect of discipline. He invented a new social order on the bones of the old. Laws were written, rewards were codified, and a terrifying engine of war was forged, the Mongol cavalry. What made Genghis Khan unstoppable was not merely brutality, it was method. He reorganized armies into decimal units, tens, hundreds, thousands, creating a flexible and ruthless machine. He instituted strict discipline and harsh punishments, but also remarkable religious tolerance and meritocratic promotion. He adopted technologies and tactics from conquered peoples. Siege engineers from China, intel networks from the Silk Road. His scouts were his eyes, his couriers his lifeblood. Speed became strategy. Where enemies moved in layers and lines, the Mongols moved like thunder. They feigned retreats to lure foes into ambushes. They coordinated across terrifying distances with signaling, smoke, and disciplined riders. To face them was to face a foe who could outthink and outmove you in a single heartbeat. Genghis Khan's first campaigns were as much consolidation as conquest. He crushed rival tribes with a severity that left no room for future descent. Then he looked outward. In the west, the Khwarezmian Empire underestimated him. Their arrogance would be costly. Traders sent to their markets were executed. Genghis answered not with negotiation but with a storm of steel. Cities fell, rulers vanished. His reputation became a weapon. Fear preceded his arrival. In China, the Jin and Western Xia empires tasted the ferocity of the horse archer. Siegecraft adapted. Rock and mortar met Mongol cunning. Still, the Mongols advanced, sometimes through direct assault, sometimes through terrifying psychological warfare. Massacres for resistance, clemency for those who surrendered. The price was enormous. Cities that resisted often faced extermination. Survivors killed, fields salted, histories erased. Some estimates suggest millions died in campaigns stretching from East Asia to the borders of Europe and the Middle East. The destruction reshaped populations and trade and left scars that lasted generations. But there was also a different legacy. The Mongol Empire forged connections. Under Genghis and his successors, the Silk Road reopened at scale. Trade, ideas, and technologies flowed along routes now protected by Mongol law. Religions moved more freely, and in some regions, cultures mixed in ways previously impossible. Genghis Khan remains one of history's most contested figures. To some, he is pure villain, a destroyer of cities and people. To others, a unifier and modernizer. A leader who founded a system of law, promoted meritocracy, and protected commerce. History rarely fits into single frames. Genghis was both devourer and creator. He also changed warfare. He dismantled the fortress mentality of Asia and Europe. Armies that once relied on sheer manpower now faced a lightning force that prized mobility, intelligence, and terror as instruments of statecraft. What separated Genghis from ordinary tyrants was his relentless systematization of power. He demanded absolute loyalty, rewarded innovation, and erased failure with brutal efficiency. Stories of his cruelty, executions, mass slaughters are true. He used violence as policy. Yet he also promoted religious tolerance, established postal systems, and set property rights that protected traders. It is tempting to reduce him to bloodlust or to praise his administrative reforms alone. The man who ordered siege and massacre could also listen to a Sufi teacher or protect a Nestorian church. This duality, the compassionate and the cold-blooded, is the heart of his legacy. Genghis Khan's conquests rewired the medieval world. The Mongol Empire made long-distance rule possible on a scale previously unimagined. It cleared pathways for exploration, indirectly creating conditions that would centuries later facilitate global exchanges and even European voyages to distant continents. His descendants would govern an empire spanning from Beijing to the Danube. They created a cross-continental polity where diplomats, merchants, and artisans traveled with an ease that linked East and West. The repercussions were political, economic, and cultural, and they echo to this day. Genghis Khan died in 1227. The circumstances of his death are shrouded in mystery and myth. Some say illness, others a fall from his horse, some whisper assassination. His burial place remains hidden beneath the steppe, guarded in legend and silence, yet his body could be buried, his idea could not. He left an empire that would be both steward and scourge. His family, his generals, and his laws continued to shape continents for decades. He, the man born into exile and scorn, had remade the map. History asks a difficult question. How do we remember such a man? As monster or master, destroyer or architect? Perhaps the truth refuses simplification. Genghis Khan was a force of history, terrifying and brilliant, cruel and creative, a man who bent 1,000 rivalries into a single terrible will, and in doing so, conquered not only lands but the imagination of later ages.